Hello everyone. This is a first look at the new novel I'll be starting soon. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Any comments, suggestions, or constructive criticisms are more than welcome. Thank you so much for watching. Chapter 1. The diner smelled of burnt coffee, stale grease, and the metallic tang of a dying city. A young man, barely 18, sat in a corner booth where the vinyl was held together by layers of duct tape. He poked at a plate of lukewarm hash browns with a chipped plastic fork, his movements slow, as if his limbs were made of lead. He wore a heavy, charcoal gray hoodie pulled low, but it couldn't hide the paleness of his skin or the dark, bruised circles under his eyes that made him look a decade older. Outside the window, the neon sign of a nearby laundromat flickered, casting a rhythmic, sickly violet light across his face. He didn't look like a savior. He looked like a kid who hadn't slept since the year began. When you hear the word White Mage, you probably think of a fantasy novel, he thought, his eyes tracking a bead of condensation sliding down his water glass. You think of a guy in pristine white robes with gold trim, standing safely behind a massive tank and a sweating swordsman. He waves a mahogany staff, says something in a dead language, and suddenly everyone's wounds are gone and the party is back to fighting evil. Gold, glory, and a clean conscience. He took a bite of the potatoes, but it tasted like ash. Well, that's a novel. In my world, white doesn't mean you heal the injured. It means you purify. It's not about closing skin. It's about scrubbing the spirit. When someone dies a violent death, a mugging gone wrong, a betrayal, a lonely heart stopping in an empty apartment, or if they just have enough lingering regrets to choke on, their soul doesn't just pass on. It curdles. It turns into a corrupted mess of mana that lashes out at the living like a cornered animal. He shifted in the booth, his fingers grazing his forearm. Beneath the sleeve of his hoodie, a faint, jagged line of ink-black veins pulsed beneath his skin, the mark of his last job. That's when they call us. To prevent a haunting or a massacre, they call a white mage to perform the echo cleanse. We're the celestial janitors. We filter the polluted, jagged mana of the atmosphere through our own nervous systems to produce a pulse of pure mana that dissolves the rot. We're the only filters the world has. He closed his eyes, and for a second, he wasn't in the diner. He was back in that damp basement from 4 hours ago, smelling the copper of the blood on the floor and hearing the final, terrified scream of a man who'd been stabbed for his watch. Filtering that much filth doesn't come without a cost. You don't just wash away the memory, you absorb it. I don't just know how that man died. I felt the cold steel of the knife. I felt the regret of the phone call he never made to his daughter. I inherited his shame, his fear, and his last desperate thought. My body is a graveyard of other people's worst moments, and honestly, I'm running out of room for my own. I pushed the last bit of cold hash brown around my plate, watching the grease congeal. Sin Eater, that was the nickname the street cops gave me. A fitting title for my profession, even if it sounded a bit too dramatic for a guy eating breakfast at 2 a.m. in a place that probably hasn't seen a health inspector since the king was a prince. My name is Brian Jacobs. I'm 19 this year, and I've been carrying this gift since I was 15. I officially started cleansing souls for the Federation Police last year. I know what you're thinking, but this isn't your typical high fantasy novel. Yes, we have magic, heroes, saints, dragons, and the occasional monster rift that opens up in the middle of a freeway, but we aren't stuck in the Renaissance. We have electricity, TV, and smartphones. Life here isn't much different from Earth. Well, except for the part where a king still controls the region, and might makes right isn't just a saying, it's the law of physics. If you haven't figured it out yet, I remember my past life. Back on Earth, I was just a regular guy working 40 hours a week just to keep my head above water. Who would have thought that in my new life, I'd be doing the exact same thing? I live in a studio apartment now. One big room where the living room, bedroom, and kitchen all huddle together like they're trying to stay warm. It's small, and the walls are thin enough that I can hear my neighbor's holographic TV, but the rent is manageable. It wasn't always like this. I used to live in luxury. My birth parents are the founders of Jacob Studios, one of the biggest entertainment conglomerates in the capital. I was the youngest of four, one brother, two sisters than me. Each of them was more talented, more magically gifted, and physically stronger than I could ever hope to be. In this world, power isn't strictly about lineage. It's a gift from the gods, and your worth is determined by how you use your abilities and the skills you grind for. There's just one problem. The system here is rigid. A white mage can't use fire magic like a red mage or manipulate water like a blue mage. We can swing a sword or a dagger, sure, but we don't get the related class skills to actually thrive like a thief or a warrior. It's the ultimate stay-in-your-lane power set. In a world that prizes combat power and destructive scale, a white mage is at the very bottom of the food chain. We're considered utility, like a battery or a water filter. Essential, but replaceable. That's why I'm sitting in this dingy diner instead of mansion. My father kicked me out at 18 and cut ties the moment my potential peaked at janitor status. I was disowned for being useless to the family brand. I saw it coming the day my gift manifested, so I wasn't even surprised. I drained the rest of my lukewarm water and stood up, the bell above the diner door jingling as a couple of tired-looking patrol officers walked in. They saw my gray hoodie and the faint, dark veins creeping toward my jawline, and they immediately looked away. Back to square one, I thought, pulling my hood up and stepping out into the rainy street, right where I left off of my old life. Just hoping that, for once, something will actually change. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification from the Federation Dispatch. New request, District 4, residential suicide. Echo risk high. Status, urgent. I sighed, the cold rain hitting my face. Duty calls. Someone else's misery was waiting to be eaten. The rain drummed a rhythmic, hollow beat against the corrugated metal of the bus shelter. I slumped onto the bench, my breath hitching as I watched the ink-black veins beneath my skin begin their slow retreat. They pulsed with a dull, sickly heat, the physical manifestation of a soul's filth being filtered through my own marrow. When a white mage cleanses a spirit, we don't just fix it. We act as the kidney for the ethereal, straining the corruption through our own bodies. The density of the darkness dictates the stain. Suicide is always the heaviest. It carries the weight of physical torture, seasoned with the jagged, final memories of a mind that had utterly given up. It's a revolting way to make a living, but the rent doesn't care about my moral fatigue. The bus finally hissed to a stop, its headlights cutting through the downpour like twin needles. I boarded in silence, the coins clinking into the fare box as I kept my hoodie pulled low. I was a ghost among the living, seeking the sanctuary of the back seat. The cabin was sparsely populated. A young couple, limbs entwined as if they could keep the world at bay with a hug. An old man in a sharp but fraying business suit, clutching a briefcase that had seen better decades. A middle-aged woman balancing a bag of groceries while her child's tablet blared a tinny, upbeat nursery rhyme, a cheerful contrast to the gloom outside. They all had lives, hopes, dreams that didn't involve swallowing someone else's trauma. I closed my eyes, but the darkness behind my lids offered no rest. I could still see the man from my last job, the phantom sensation of the blade that had ended him replaying in my mind like a broken film strip. When the bus lurched to a halt again, I blinked back to reality. The woman and the businessman were gone. In their place sat two men in obsidian black suits and an elderly woman who stared blankly out the window. I rose, my boots heavy on the ribbed floor, and stepped out into the night. The sun had surrendered to a bruised, purple dusk. Streetlights flickered to life, casting long, jaundiced shadows across the pavement as I checked my phone. The address led me to a weathered apartment complex. I buzzed the entrance, the mechanical click of the lock sounding like a starter pistol. The lobby doubled as a laundromat, the air thick with the scent of cheap detergent and damp lint. Ignoring the groaning elevator, I took the stairs. By the time I reached the 6th floor, the air had grown cold. I didn't need the room number to find it. I could feel the unresolved mana vibrating against the wood of door number 4. It was jagged, frantic energy, a psychic echo that wanted to finish the violence it had started, now trapped in this cramped, peeling hallway. I didn't enter immediately. I stood there, hand hovering over the knob, listening to the frantic thud of my own heart. I forced a long, slow breath into my lungs, centering my spirit until the drumming in my chest went quiet. I turned the handle and pushed the door open. The room was smaller than the hallway, smelling of stale copper and unwashed linens. The air here didn't just feel cold, it felt thick like walking through waist-deep water. In the center of the studio apartment, the furniture had been tossed aside as if by a localized cyclone. The echo was there, a shimmering, distorted outline near the window. It wasn't a ghost, not yet, but a concentrated burst of the previous tenant's final moments, looping in a silent scream. "I'm here," I whispered, though whether to the room or myself, I wasn't sure. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small glass vial of salt, the grains glowing with a faint, milky light. As I stepped over a shattered lamp, the black veins on my wrist began to throb again, reaching out like vines toward the lingering trauma in the air. The filtration was beginning before I even touched the spirit. This one wasn't just dense, it was angry. I took another step, and the door slammed shut behind me, locked by a hand that wasn't there. I stepped into the room and immediately felt it. The body sat slumped in a chair near the far wall, covered with a thin sheet that did nothing to hide the outline beneath. Still, final, but the room itself was anything but. The air churned. Dense, angry mana coiled through the space like a storm trapped indoors, pressing against my skin, crawling along my nerves. It wasn't just heavy, it was hostile, the kind of echo that didn't just linger. It resented. I exhaled slowly and walked to the center of the room. "All right," I muttered under my breath. I raised my hands, palms open, and drew in a deep breath. The moment I did, the mana shifted, reacting, recognizing. My veins pulsed faintly beneath my skin. Echo cleanse. The world shattered. Not violently, but completely. The room dissolved like mist, reality folding in on itself until I was no longer standing in that cramped apartment. I was somewhere else, someone else's end. I stood in a dimly lit room that mirrored the one I had just left, but quieter. Still, frozen in time, across from me, seated at a small table, was a woman. Finn didn't begin to describe her. She looked hollow. Her frame was fragile, almost skeletal, as if whatever sustained her had long since given up. Long black hair spilled over her shoulders in tangled waves, framing a face that looked more corpse than living flesh. Sunken cheeks, pale skin stretched too tightly over bone. But her eyes, emerald green, sharp, alive, and staring directly at me. I froze. That's new. Echoes didn't see you. They replayed. They looped. They broke down into fragments of emotion and memory. They didn't track you. They didn't focus on you. I shifted slightly to the side. Her gaze followed. A thin line of cold sweat traced down my spine. "Okay," I whispered. "I don't like that." I took another step. Her eyes never left mine. That's when the unease turned into something sharper. Something wrong. I had done hundreds of cleanses. Never, not once, had an echo acknowledged me. My heartbeat began to pick up, each thud louder than the last in the suffocating silence. Then, White Mage. I flinched. The words were flat, empty, devoid of any emotion. But they were unmistakably directed at me. For a second, I just stared at her. "You gotta be kidding me." Most souls I encountered were broken, desperate, trapped in the final loop of their regret. They cried, begged, reached for things that were no longer there. They didn't speak like this. They didn't recognize what I was. "White Mage," she repeated. Slowly, deliberately, she rose from her chair. "There will come a time when a great evil emerges," she said, her voice steady and hollow. "And with it, the world will fall into disorder. He will be perfect. I didn't move, didn't interrupt, because something deep in my gut told me this wasn't part of her death. There is only one way to stop him. She turned and walked toward the small kitchen counter, her movement stiff but purposeful. My eyes followed as she reached for a bottle sitting at the edge. Medication. I watched in silence as she tipped it back, swallowing the contents without hesitation, then calmly returned to her seat. Like she had done this 100 times before. "You need to grow stronger," she said, folding her hand in her lap. "You need to unlock your potential. You have a power within you, and I will help you unlock it." The air shifted. No, it changed. A soft, radiant white light began to gather around her body, swallowing the dimness of the room. It grew brighter, warmer, pushing back against the oppressive weight that had filled the space. And then, she changed. The frail, dying figure before me was gone. In her place stood a woman whole and radiant, her skin full of life, her posture steady, her presence overwhelming in a way I couldn't explain. She stepped toward me. I tried to move. I couldn't. My body locked in place, every muscle refusing to respond as she closed the distance between us. "This is a gift," she said softly now, the emptiness gone from her voice. "From us to you." She stopped just in front of me, up close. Her eyes were even brighter. Clear, knowing. "Please, save this world." Before I could react, she leaned forward and pressed her lips gently against my forehead. The sensation hit instantly. A jolt, sharp, electric, ripped through my entire body. I braced for the usual. The cold, the suffocating flood of foreign memories forcing their way into my mind. But it didn't come. Instead, warmth. Soft, steady, gentle. It spread through me like light through water, filling every crack, every scar, every place that had been worn down by years of filth and suffering. My breath caught. "What?" A whisper followed, not from her, but from somewhere deeper. "Divine skill acquired. Soul archive, residual engram." Effect. Upon successfully performing an echo cleanse, there is a chance to crystallize a fragment of the deceased soul. These fragments bind to the user's mana circuits, granting skills or knowledge possessed in life. My eyes widened. "You've got to be..." The warmth began to fade. The light dimmed. And just like that, I was falling. I gasped as reality snapped back into place. The apartment, the body, the suffocating air, now calm. Quiet. Gone. I staggered slightly, catching myself against the wall as my body finally responded again. That wasn't normal. No cold residue. No lingering trauma clawing at the inside of my skull. Just clarity. And then, click. Something in my mind shifted. Locked into place. Information surfaced, not chaotic, not fragmented, but structured. Clean. New skill acquired. Ethereal sieve. Type. Passive. Mental discipline. A method of refined manifiltration. Instead of allowing echo corruption to flood the entire nervous system, the user constructs a conceptual sieve at the point of entry, reducing psychological burden and increasing processing control. I blinked. Too. A short, disbelieving laugh escaped me. Yeah, that's definitely not supposed to happen. White mages didn't get stronger like this. We survived. That was it. That was the job. A sharp knock echoed through the room, snapping me out of it. Federation. A voice called from the other side of the door. Status. I pulled my hood back up quickly, covering the faint shimmer of white hair that had slipped free. "It's done," I replied, my voice steady despite everything. Echoes gone. There was a pause. Then the handle turned. I stepped past them without another word, slipping into the hallway before they could ask questions I didn't feel like answering. Because I didn't have answers. Not yet. I made my report, logged the job, signed off for the night. Routine. Normal. Like nothing had changed. But as I stepped back out into the city and began the long walk home, hands in my pockets, hood shielding me from the drizzle, I could still feel it. That warmth. Faint. Lingering. And for the first time since I became a White Mage, the weight inside me felt just a little bit lighter. What the hell did you give me? I murmured into the night.